Welcome to In Real Time, where we as Heights Church are inviting you in for real conversations about leading people, organizations, and change in the new normal. We're hoping that our real discussions about our church's journey will help you as you reimagine and rebuild yours. Welcome to In Real Time, where we're having real conversations about leading people, organization, and change. And we're so glad that you are with us today. And today's topic, we're going to be unpacking the idea of when we hit our capacity. We realized in real time that as we're kind of walking through this idea of growing your capacity that, well, this is a question that we really needed to ask. And yes, we're out of order. We really probably should have done this one last time, but that's okay. We're going to do it now because it'll help us as we continue to progress through these 4 areas that leaders want to grow their capacities in. Yeah. Now, before we go any further, I am joined by 2 co-hosts. So why don't you 2 introduce yourselves?
Well, I'm Jen, and I'm one of our associate pastors here, mostly in administration, but also with our restoration ministries.
Great.
I'm Justin. I am our life groups pastor, also young adults pastor, and then I oversee hospitality in some other areas too.
Very nice. Yeah. Very nice. Well, good. Well, we are excited to have you guys here today, and we're going to have a real conversation about this idea of, well, when do we know? And then what do we do when we hit our capacity as leaders? Because every leader has hit their capacity, whether they knew that's what was going on or not. And I think this is a topic that we talk about here from time to time. And we recognize that, capacity is something that, well, it's finite. And we know that it's something that we can grow. And we realize it's important we know when we've hit it. But what's our definition for capacity?
It is the maximum amount that something can hold. So if you think about a box, like how much can that box physically hold inside of it before it is overflowing and it's just a big mess of everything.
Yeah.
So it's just how much can and if it's a personal thing, it's like how much can I accomplish, do, like what is my personal type of capacity?
Right.
How much can I hold, basically?
Yeah. So each one of us we are a box. We can hold a certain amount of abilities and ability to produce. We have a certain amount. And then the idea there is we believe we can grow that box. We think we can make it bigger. And of course, we know this because of the parable of the talents, which we went through in detail a couple of episodes ago. So it's important we realize our box can absolutely grow. Our capacity can absolutely grow. So here is the question, because I don't think that many leaders think about this question. How do you know when you have reached your capacity? Now, there's 2 areas of capacity we're really talking about. We're talking about personally, and we're talking about our ministry goals as well. And so if you're not in a church, you're a nonprofit or some other type of leadership, there are goals you have, and you're not reaching those. And so you realize, wait a minute, my capacity is not enough. It's not great enough to reach that goal. So there's personal, and then there's these goals. So how do you know when you personally have reached your capacity? Your box can't hold anymore. How do you know, Jen?
Well, I say the wheels are coming off, which essentially means things are starting to slip through the cracks. Nothing's getting done on time. I can't really do anything well. And that's when I just start to feel overwhelmed, underwater, whatever expression you want to use.
Yeah.
It's not good.
Yeah.
Not a good feeling.
Hey, no, but thanks for being honest about that, because I think it's really important. Because when you get to that, you realize, wait, something's wrong here, because that's not how you normally operate. So I know that to be true. We worked together way too long. That's not it. But when you do, you realize I reached my capacity limit. That's good. All right. How about you, Justin? How do you know?
Oh, definitely. It's the feeling of being overwhelmed. It's like there's too much information coming in and I can't even sort it out because I feel like there's just too much volume of stuff that I have to deal with. And so that feeling of overwhelmed can then lead me to stuff like irritation. I just really short and grumpy. And if I'm feeling that, I'm like, okay, there's like this little red light in the back of my mind that's like, there's something off. You need to figure out what it is that's going on.
Yeah.
But that's those, and I've heard people say there's confusion. They get just really confused. Things become really unclear for them. But for me, those two, the overwhelmed and the irritation, are definitely warning signs for me that I'm at capacity.
Yeah.
With all that's going on.
That's good.
Yeah. Personally.
And for me, I will say I feel confused and I feel agitated. And when I say confused, I mean, I have a difficult time really understanding what are the right data points for me to even be looking at right now. Normally that's clear to me, but when I am not clear about that any longer, I realize, wait, I'm hitting a capacity limit here, or I'm agitated longer than normal.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
I'm not normally an agitated person, but when I know I've got a low grade agitation, that means I'm wrestling with something that I just can't get my head around, which means I'm reaching a capacity issue there. I'm hitting the walls of that box.
Yeah.
So it's important we know this, because when we get to these areas, often, we just think, man, what's wrong? And then we don't really get to the problem. And the problem is we hit our capacity. Well, when I know the problem, I can help solve the problem.
Yes.
But we just think, we think of something else, and we dive into other things, or we just live with it.
Yes, which is not healthy.
That's not healthy. It's not healthy for any one of us.
Not us or our team or our church.
Exactly. So how do you know you've reached your capacity when it comes to ministry goals?
Well,
you
want to go first?
Well, no, you go.
For me, it's and I think we were chatting about this earlier. There's an unhealthy way, and then there's a healthy way, right? The healthy way is you just recognize, hey, this isn't really where we want it to be. So we kind of pay attention to our expectations. We look at what we have. We kind of assess. Okay,
like looking at resources.
Right. We need to grow some people. We need to grow our team. Whatever. I mean, there's a healthy way to manage it, and then there's the unhealthy way, which is usually how I can tell I'm dealing with a ministry capacity one, is I start cycling around the problem. And I just kind of, my brain just starts circling around the problem. And I can't stop to see a solution. I'm just almost fixed on, okay, this is the problem.
Yeah.
But I can't get creative enough to step outside of that spot.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the unhealthy way and the healthy way that I get.
Yeah, I agree.
That's good.
There's it's almost like you just don't know the very next step to take.
Right.
Yeah.
You just start to feel stuck and overwhelmed and have no idea what to do next. And it's that spiral that you get into that is not good.
Yeah. I love that. I think those are great descriptions. I think I would add one more thing. I experience all of that as well. And as a senior lead, I also find myself emotionally drained.
Oh, yeah.
I find myself just, again, it kind of comes to that agitation. And I'm just spending a lot of emotional energy on a problem, but I'm not solving that problem. I just find that, hey, this thing is still in front of me. I'm still dealing with it, and it's been multiple weeks or even months, and I'm not getting there. Yeah. And maybe as I'm walking through the process, I realize if in a healthy way we can recognize this is just an unrealistic goal.
Yeah.
Right?
No, that's fair.
be.
Right?
Yeah.
We literally don't have the resources, and I think you mentioned earlier, of people.
Right.
In order to actually achieve this goal. So we need to reframe the goal. We need to reframe it. And that's okay to do.
Yeah.
Because it needs to be realistic. Otherwise, it's a ridiculous goal. It's just going to frustrate everybody. Or we realize we just have the wrong strategic plan to reach that goal. So let's go with plan B, because plan A is not going to work for us. So we need to do a reassessment.
True.
And so that's what you can do then. I think another part of this that's really important, as we were all talking about it, is we really need to do our best to take the emotion out of this.
Yeah, if we can.
Right.
Because when I inject emotion into that confusion and overwhelmedness, nothing good ever comes out of that, right? No.
Just more frustration
Right.
and disappointment.
Yeah. So it's important we reframe hitting the limits of our capacity as a problem to solve, not a wall that we can't get through.
Yeah.
It's important we do that. A wall I'm not able to break through. I'm not able to make the box, get through the edges of the box.
Right.
But what really is happening here is it's a problem to solve, to stretch those walls. That's how I need to reframe this.
Yeah.
And so when I can put it that way, I can solve that problem, but I can't break through a brick wall.
No.
Right.
Yeah. So that's really a key for us. And so you guys were going to tell me about 2 examples, you or one and you're 2, of examples of how we have in real time recently walked through hitting capacity. So Jen, yours has a lot more to do with ministry goals. So let's talk about that one first.
So just recently, actually, like within the past month, I believe, it's all just came to a head where the wheels started coming off. Things were slipping through the cracks. And I thought, okay, I've been carrying a certain amount of workload for a while here now. And I was just not, it wasn't working. It was too much. I just could not do everything that I needed to well. Even the top 20%, we've talked about the Pareto, and I knew the top 20%, that really was my priority.
Yeah.
I still was not able to get to it all. And things were just getting so far behind, it was becoming a problem.
Yeah.
So the productivity that I wanted to be able to do and really needed to be doing with my job wasn't happening.
Yeah. And to be fair, we've offloaded some responsibilities from Pastor Cheryl.
Yep. When Cheryl
who
retired,
was our executive
things came to
pastor.
my
She
plate.
retired last year. And so some of those things came to your plate.
Yep.
But there was too much.
Yeah.
But we knew this is a possibility.
That's
so
right.
we left it open-handed to continue to talk about it.
Yeah.
And you needed to talk about it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which I know we're going to unpack some more, but
good.
it definitely took a place of recognizing I got to just kind of swallow my pride here and just recognize that I need help, which is really hard to do as a leader. You want to be able to do your job.
Yeah.
And you want to be able to do all of it
Yeah.
without having to offload onto other people or look your boss in the eye and say, I can't do this. I need help.
Yeah.
So that was another part of it that I just had to work through.
But as a senior lead, I need you to know that that's one of the most important things I want you to do.
Well, there you go.
Is to recognize when it's just unrealistic.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we're just going to keep frustrating each other where I expect things that are unrealistic. That's not fair to you.
Yeah.
And maybe there's something here in the mix that when we talk about it that I can offer an insight that would actually solve it or
That's
make
right.
it better, or we just get a different perspective. So we'll unpack that in a couple minutes. Okay, so Justin, you had a different issue about capacity.
Mine
How did
was
you hit it? More personal.
Very much personal. Yeah. When I was first brought onto staff, I was new to this whole ministry thing. I came out of the culinary world. And I had been brought on to do life groups alongside of Pastor Cheryl, because that was really what she was doing before she was our executive pastor. And you guys had given me these assignments to go investigate what would it mean to write our own curriculum alongside of the messages.
Yeah.
And I remember kind of looking at the writing on the wall, like her capacity, what her workload was, what yours was. And I realized this is going to land on my shoulders. This thing of writing these life group notes every week is going to land on me. I could see the writing on the wall.
That train was coming down the tracks.
Oh my
right at
gosh.
you.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, man, I could see that headlight and I freaked out because I felt so overwhelmed by this. I'm dyslexic. I have all these, like, this learning disability. I'm like, I am so unqualified for this. And I pulled her aside at a conference we were at, and I told her this. I said, Cheryl, I can see this writing on the wall, and I'm ready to quit because I was so overwhelmed. I was making decisions out of fear instead of trusting that God had a plan in this.
Yeah.
And she did 2 things for me. One, she gave me moral support in that she said, we'll do it together.
Yeah.
So even though that wasn't entirely how we did it, I wrote it, and then she walked me through some different ideas and added things, but it was really still the bulk of the work was on me. But the second thing she did is she actually poured faith into me. She believed in me. She said to me, Justin, there's more in you than you know, and you need to trust that. God wants to do more with you than you believe in yourself.
Because we could see it in you.
Well,
It was obvious to us.
and I couldn't see it
Yeah.
at the time. I could not see beyond the wall of what I thought the lid was on my capacity in that space.
So you hit a capacity issue personally.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
We could see your box could get bigger.
Way bigger than I thought it was.
Yeah.
Way
That's
bigger than I
good.
thought.
These are great examples. And you know what? Every leader knows that experience. Now, they may not have gone and had the same positive experience you did, but we have all been at that place. We just think, I'm not enough.
Yeah.
There's no way.
Oh, yeah.
And so that's a great story. That's why I really wanted you to be able to share that.
Well, and one of the beauties of it is it reminds me that I can help grow people's capacity by helping them see who God has already called them to be.
Yeah, it's good.
And as a
It's good.
leader, I can stretch people by helping them see that.
Yeah.
And that's just beautiful in my opinion.
So can you take just a minute here and tell us, all right, so how did you guys resolve it? What was the story of how you guys resolved it?
I started writing. We just stepped in and gave it a shot. I mean, at that point it was coming. I needed to start writing the following week. And I would basically put it on paper and then bring it to her, and we would sit down and go over it together. And she would say, this is a great question. I would reframe this question. I would rewrite this thought, and then I would rework it. And we did that together for a couple of years. And then she'd skim it and go, this looks great. And honestly, it became me at that point.
Yeah.
And since then, gosh, it's over 130, 140 different life group messages that I've
So
written.
good.
Yeah.
So she just she equipped you along the way.
Yeah.
And eventually handed it off.
Yeah.
So good.
Totally how
and
that
your
went down.
confidence grew through the whole thing.
Absolutely. And then hearing feedback from people in groups. Hey, I really liked this study. This question really meant a lot to us. And as we've grown, I mean, it's as you step into faith in these areas, you realize God really did prepare you for more.
Yeah.
And then you start to trust that process. And so now, gosh, the writing window that I have is like this big. It's tiny. And so
What does that mean? What do you mean by that?
well, I used to I get notes from you on Tuesday. I'd have Wednesday, Thursday afternoon to process, study, write. Now I get stuff Wednesday afternoon and they're due by Thursday at 10.
Yeah.
And so I have Wednesday evening to study, pray, think, and then Thursday morning to write. And so
you can get it done in a lot quicker manner is what you're saying.
Significantly.
Yeah. So not only are
shorter
you
time.
able to do it, you can do it in an efficient amount of time.
Yes.
So good.
Yes.
Wow. So it was in you.
Oh, yeah. Very much so.
That's great.
Very much so.
So Jen, what did you do in order to process through your capacity wall problem?
Well, like you said earlier, I just kind of had to be intentional about keeping my head in a space that was not emotional.
Mm-hmm.
So it was intentionally saying to myself, okay, I'm going to be objective about this. And I just had been assessing it myself just for a month or two, knowing that sometimes there's seasons, there's ebbs and flows to busyness, and then it slows down. And I thought, well, okay, I could sustain this if it slows down.
Yeah.
But it never, slowed down.
Never slow down.
And so then I thought, okay, I think I'm going to have to do something. So I talked with a few people that really know me closely.
Yeah. Yeah.
And just thought, okay, is this really what's going on here? Do you feel like this is a true assessment? Am I looking at this clearly? Is it just too much? Is it just too much? And that seemed to be really what it was. And so then with a lot of prayer, of course, I always want to listen to what God's saying to me, just in case there is an element there of
No doubt.
a lie that has snuck in, telling me, well, you're not good enough.
On your part. Absolute rejection of God.
Yeah, right.
that could be
well,
there.
you got to make sure that's not going on.
Not really with you, but yeah. No, it's good. It's good.
But discerning, is this also, Lord, what you see is going on, and trusting that when you feel overwhelmed in those places, you can trust Him to help you.
Yeah.
And that's His promise to us in anything we face, is He wants to help us. So I discerned all of that. And then I just knew the next step was to sit down with you. I just came to you and I said, hey, this is where I'm at. I've been trying to work it out every single way I can. I've given this months of thought in my mind, and I just don't see any other solution. Then I think I just have too much on my plate. What do you think?
Yeah.
Can we sit down and brainstorm this together? I have a few ideas, but I need you to confirm, yeah, this makes sense. Or, well, what if you did this differently? So we had a brainstorming session and just figured out and looked at what pieces I actually don't have to be the one doing. And then who were those people on our staff that were the best fit for each of those roles.
Yeah.
And then, you met with both of them, and then now we're in the middle of literally transitioning last week, prayer ministry over to Justin. And so, doing that handoff well. I'm not just going to say dump and run sort of thing, but hey, I'll work with you a few weeks here to make this transition go healthy. And that's kind of how it's all worked out.
Yeah. So you and I, because we've worked together for about 16 years now.
Yeah.
And so over those years, we've had this conversation a few times.
We
Not
have.
a lot, but a few times.
Yeah.
Sometimes we just reprioritize things. Sometimes
Yes.
we just say, that doesn't need to be done anymore. But this
Yes,
time we
that's
said
right.
there's two things that we just need to take off your plate.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's been a variation of those, but definitely that conversation with me was helpful. But what was helpful for me as a senior lead is that when you came, you already had a really good assessment of what the actual problem was.
Thank you.
And I think that's really important. So for those who are staff who are thinking about approaching their senior leads, that's something that you're going to want to think about. And you're not going to have all the answers. That's the reason you need to go talk with them. There are things that are unclear, but try to find out as much clarity about the problem you can.
Yes.
And just say, here's how I see it. What do you see?
Yes.
And that way you're bringing an appeal to your leads, and then they can help you. That's very different than you're a big jerk. You're giving me way too much on my plate. I can't believe you have these expectations of me.
Right.
There's all kinds of emotion in that.
Right.
Instead of, this is a problem to solve.
Yes.
And I don't think senior leads want to give so much to their staff that they want them to have an emotional breakdown. That's not it.
Right.
But, we're not perfect, and we can not assess the situation correctly. But it's when you come honestly and we have the conversation that we start realizing, that's unrealistic.
Yeah.
Can't do it.
Yeah.
Right.
Can't do it. And so we can have a real conversation about it. So I think that's really key.
Yeah, I agree. I haven't done that well all the time. I mean, there's
That's
been
true.
other
There's been
moments.
sometimes you really screwed up.
Stop.
Well, no, I can
really
think of
bad.
one time where I was emotionally burnt out.
Yeah.
And I remember I knew it wasn't a good place sitting across from you. And I thought to myself, this time I'm like, there's no reason for me to get to the place of emotional burnout here. There is absolutely no reason why that has to be how this unfolds. But the only person that can keep that from happening is me. So I have to be intentional to address this in an objective way that, like you said, I'm coming to you with helpful suggestions, solutions, rather than just, I'm emotionally burnt out and I'm on the brink of quitting.
Right. Yeah. And I remember that conversation, but you handled it in a healthy way. And you just came and presented the problem. And then together, we solved the problem.
Yes.
Yeah, that's why that worked really well. You just took the emotion out of it.
Yes.
Even though it was very emotional.
Oh,
There
yeah.
was a lot of emotion involved.
It was a
in
weight
for
on me.
real reason.
Very much so. And I had to be patient. That was very hard for me. But I knew I had to give it time in order to assess objectively and, see if it really was just a seasonal thing or it was time. So I had to choose patience. I wasn't feeling that way.
Yeah. So that's like, this is the conversation that we're always having about our staff. It's a team. And this is the work that we hope and really have expectation that the other is doing. And when we do the work as teammates, it helps the team overall. So that by the time we have a conversation, I already know you've done the hard work, and we can move on to the next step here. So let's unpack here, just kind of in summary, some of the things that really in this process are applicable to everybody. When we hit our capacities, whether it's goals in ministry or whether it's our personal capacity, there really is a 3-step process here that's good to think through. And the first thing on here, in order to overcome the obstacle, which is really your capacity area, because you can grow that. It's an obstacle. You can overcome it and get to that next level. It's not a wall that can't be moved. To expand your boundaries, the first thing you need to do is be able to see what the real problem is.
Oh,
Yeah. So that's kind of hard to do, though, when we're confused and overwhelmed.
Yes.
Yeah. But that's why a lot of leaders don't. Right?
Well, yeah.
They just succumb to that.
And what happens when people, at least for me, when I get overwhelmed, I start to make decisions out of fear instead of faith.
Yeah.
Like I stop analyzing the situation and I let the trees dictate instead of looking at the forest. Like all of a sudden I'm just in a forest.
Yeah.
Let me pick a tree and let's just work on the tree. Is this a big priority or is it not? Set it aside. Is this a priority? Is it not? I lose the ability to do that evaluation. And so I need to slow down, step back and go, okay, let's take them one at a time.
Yeah.
Is there anything I can do about this? No. Move on. That's definitely, you're right. It's the C piece. I've got to see it. Otherwise you're just spinning, wondering if you're going to make any difference.
I think when we're talking about the C piece, that can be, do you see something in me I don't see for myself? That's what we talked about. Do you see something in regards to my overall resume here and workload that I'm not seeing clearly?
Yeah. Could I organize it differently?
Can I organize it differently? Maybe there's things I'm spending too much time on that you don't want me to spend that much time on. Right? It's like that's not as important to you anymore. And maybe you just haven't told me that yet. That happens a lot.
It does.
It does. And so that would obviously change the game. And so it's a reallocation of hours or resources. And so there's that. Maybe we're looking at different data points now. Maybe there's been times when I was looking at the wrong data points in my ministry before I was, well, even as a lead pastor, there's times you look at the wrong data points and you think, oh yeah, I can't ever do that. I can't ever hit it. You realize, wait, that's the wrong data point.
Yeah, that's not fit for us.
Why is that my gauge?
Right.
Yeah.
So there's that. So we need to see it clearly. See it clearly. And then the next thing is what? What's the next thing? We need to see it clearly. And in order, so that's like our personal assessment. And then what do we need to do? We need to lean into this a little.
And that's what I did. It's just making sure you take what you know you're starting to see as your whitewater, for lack of a better word, and talk about it with those closest to you that kind of know your wiring.
Choppy waters. It's going over the rocks. It's no longer
it's not
nice
working.
And smooth.
You're hitting that frustration or seeing that shortness of temper. And it's like, okay, I can see now that this is a goal related issue or an obstacle, an overwhelming feeling in light of I'm not meeting this, I'm over capacity. So talking with people that know you so well, and most of the time that's your spouse or a close friend at that stage, I think, because they know you, they know your wiring, they know the areas you might struggle in being confident, where your insecurities lie. So bouncing it off of them is a great first pass to just say, help me discern this. This is what I'm seeing.
Yeah.
It's a capacity issue here. And this is what I'm thinking is the reason why. What do you think? And then it's like gold when you get that kind of feedback. I mean, how many times have we, all of us, been out with our spouse on a walk or something, and we're like, what do you think?
Yeah.
And it's like, tell me.
Yeah. It's
help
good.
me.
That's good. I think also and I know this isn't going to be true for every staff. It is true for ours, where I know from myself, I want you to, and I know you do, we all do, where we sit down with one of our team and we say, hey,
one another?
Here's the issue.
All the time.
Yeah, we're friends.
But
we're
I want to
close.
be clear. That conversation is, the conversation is not, can you believe Craig gave me all of this?
No.
Expects me to achieve it. It's so unfair. This is so unreasonable. I am ticked
I'm dying here.
at my senior lead.
No,
right? That's not the conversation.
No.
The conversation
No,
is,
it's
hey,
pray for
here's
me.
where I'm at, and I need to sort through this. I'm going to sit down with Craig, I'm pretty sure, but I just need to really understand, am I saying this correctly?
Yeah.
Help me understand it.
Yeah.
That's
feedback.
a healthy conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's not indicting anyone.
No.
That's just trying to see it
Team member
clearly.
perspective, which is really, that's a good point actually, because my spouse, he's not on this team. He doesn't fully understand the dynamics and the inner workings that go on here, whereas a team member does. And that's one of the blessings we have here is that we really are friends.
Yeah.
And I feel like we can have those conversations in a confidential space. Sometimes venting, honestly, is part of what we do with each other. But like you said earlier, it's always done in a good way where we're not tearing our other coworkers down, but just getting that open, honest feedback from each other.
Yeah, it's good. All right, and then there's a third part of this. So we see it, we listen, and then we...
Oh, discernment. We got to pray about it. We got to talk to the Holy Spirit. We got to get God's thoughts on this issue. Lord,
I think he cares about these
what
things.
in the world do you want me to do? Like, is this a growth piece? Is this a shuffle piece? Is this, Lord, what do you want me to do here?
Yeah.
Is this something that you think I can do? Or is this something you're giving me to stretch me?
Right.
You know, because let's be honest, the stretch is uncomfortable sometimes. I mean, that's, as I was thinking about all this capacity piece, I think always for me, it's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
During the piece, during the stretching, when you're first stepping into the role until you find some kind of pacing and rhythm with it, that process is uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But once you find it, you know, and God gives you discernment and shows you the path forward, it really changes things. And so
it's good.
Really just making sure, because I mean, we're Jesus followers. We got to invite God into the process.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and sometimes the wisdom
Need
is,
his
this is
wisdom.
too much. You need to clear some other things off your plate
Yeah.
to do what I'm asking you to do.
good.
So, and that goes into the tools that we're going to talk about here in a minute anyway.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good. So a couple of tools as we're wrapping up today. We are recognizing that when we see, we listen, and we discern, you know, the end result of that is a greater understanding of the actual problem in front of me.
right.
Is so, you know, once I can realize what the actual problem is, I can recognize where my capacity actually needs to grow.
Yeah.
And, you know, that can be in a lot of different places that I need that capacity to grow. But now I know exactly what it is.
Yes.
And that can be many things. But so I think when it comes to other tools that allow us to grow our capacity, once you get to that understanding, like what we were talking about, this came into play. It's this whole idea of time management.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, Craig, is this a time management issue?
Right.
Where you need to free me up? Maybe there's some expectations you have, but you haven't shared them with me, or we're assuming things. Is it's a time management issue?
Yeah.
And quite honestly, this is the case for, I would say, most people. Most people have time management issues. There are hours in their day, and I know people will say, "Oh, that's not true." It's true.
It's true. Yeah.
There's hours in our day very often that could be reclaimed that we spend doing things that really they're not that important. And so we could reclaim those. Time management, obviously asking God's help.
Absolutely.
Another one is decluttering your life. I'm actually walking through this process right now.
Tell us about that.
Decluttering your life is just
that
where
look like?
well, you know, we just get busy doing a lot of things and we get kind of spread out. And it's about simplifying life again and saying, you know what, I know that, you know, these things are important. And when I talk about that, that could be, I don't know. I knew a guy who was on 4 softball teams at one time, literally playing softball 4 nights a week and newly married. And his wife finally said, no. He thought he was fine. She said, it's time to declutter. You get one. You get one night. That's it.
Wow.
That's it. It's decluttering.
Yeah.
He thought he was awesome.
sense.
He was like, what are you talking about? Come watch me. She's like, I don't want to watch you play softball 4 nights a week. Declutter your life.
Say
Make
no.
some time.
Say no to
for
some
other
things. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this goes back to that idea of what do you need to clear off your plate so that you can step into the things to stretch your capacity.
Exactly. And maybe that's looking at your social media during the day. We just found out a study that
gosh.
4 hours a week is wasted in Fortune 500 companies because people are staring at their social media on their phone, flipping through. 4 hours a week.
And I think
that's a lot of time.
Yeah.
Sometimes our capacity for work, it's impacted by other things outside. Like, if you've got a personal struggle going on, some family issue, some emergency, some health thing, that impacts your capacity. And so I still I'll need to declutter things so that I can still be present and I can still be effective. And still be useful. Because that stuff happens,
It is.
I mean, we get phone calls like that all the time. And so how do you navigate those things? And so I think declutter is a huge one in my life. I know that's a big tool that I've used.
So time management, decluttering, I would also say get curious, get super curious, because one of the biggest ways I've grown my capacity over the years, and you guys have too, is that we get curious about the topic and we just start researching it. We start talking to the people who are doing it further along than we are. Get curious. It's a mark of the greatest leaders is curiosity. They never stop being curious. No matter how much they think they know about a topic, they're still curious.
I love that.
And that's where we want to be. Always learning, always humble. And even though I'm supposed to be an expert, I'm not. I want to keep learning. So get curious. You can expand your boundaries.
Our young adults, when they're in school, and all of a sudden they get these massive overloads, I go, well, have you talked to your professors? Have you asked the questions of what they need versus what you think they need?
Yeah.
And so many times it's no. I said, well, go talk to them. Go have a conversation with them. They want to help you get better.
Yeah.
And every time they come back and go, oh my gosh, I'm so glad I had that conversation.
Yeah, it's good.
Because they answered my questions. It was actually far easier than I anticipated it because I was curious. And so I love that.
You got to do it. You got to do it. And then, just feedback. So time management, asking for help from others, declutter your life. And curiosity. Those are great tools as well. So when you find yourself hitting your capacity, whether you're overwhelmed, confused, you're hurting, you're agitated, you're irritated, you're emotional, and you just can't shake it, you might be hitting your capacity.
Yeah,
and then
probably are.
It's time for you to see it clearly, listen to others as they see it, discern, and then you're going to understand so much more about it. And hopefully, as you go through that process, you're going to realize what's the real problem. And then you can start really focusing on your boundary, that problem to solve. And maybe with time management, asking for help, decluttering, or getting really curious about that topic, you're going to be able to expand that boundary. And very often, that's how it's going to be done. That's really, really good. Well, thanks for having a real conversation with me about leading people, organization, and change. And if you liked this podcast, we'd love for you to hit like, subscribe, the bell notification, so this drops every time into your feed when it does drop. We don't want you to miss one of them. Well, so glad to have you with us today, and we can't wait for you to join us next time for In Real Time.